Miami Hurricane fans, what can you expect from your new DC, Lance Guidry? More importantly, what can you expect from this new direction on defense? Now, he still runs that 4-2-5 scheme that Kevin Steele ran. We're going to talk more about that later, because just because it's the same labeling on paper does not mean it's the same defense. What you can expect is an emphasis on the secondary, because Lance Guidry was the DC at Marshall last year, and his history is in the secondary. He played safety. He's historically coached the secondary. You can't change where you're from, is what I'm trying to tell you. There's going to be a special amount of pride he takes on making sure that position group is in tip-top shape. Now, the other thing I would add to that is the persona of a coach is, I would say, just as important as what they do from an X's and O's standpoint, because persona leaks into your locker room. It leaks into who your roster, who your team decides they are. Teams oftentimes take on the persona of their coaches. That's why I love Mario Cristobal being the head coach at Miami. He is bringing what Miami needs historically. There's been a narrative around Miami of being entitled and living off of what Miami's done historically and not having the edge that they've had in the past during the glory days of the U. Like Lance Guidry, I think, is in that exact same vein. No nonsense, hard edge football kind of guy. He's no nonsense, and he leads with his heart, from what I've gathered watching a couple of press conferences and just things that we've been able to see Lance Guidry approach the media. And there's one instance in particular where he was the interim head coach at Miami of Ohio, and he gave a pregame speech before the Go Daddy Bowl. I was ready to run through a brick wall. Like, I'm fresh out of eligibility, but the way that he speaks to his players and the way that he communicates, he's going to challenge you, but at the same time, he's going to pull the best out of you. Coaches with, to get his players playing with fire, enthusiasm, just all the right things that I think Miami needs and is going to benefit from as they continue to take the next step under Mario Cristobal. Now, I want to talk about this scheme, but really quickly, if you have not yet subscribed to the On3 YouTube channel, we would love to have you a part of this community. College football games have stopped. I promise you, this channel, the hard count, has not. So make sure you're locked in. Hit the bell to make sure you know when we go live. Also, follow me on the social channels at JD Piquel on Twitter as well as on Instagram. Now, what to expect from this defense? Like I alluded to at the beginning of this video, it's going to be that 4-2-5 scheme that you saw last year from an alignment standpoint. So 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 DBs. So the scheme will be similar, but it'll be more aggressive than what you saw last year. And the reason why that's important is Kevin Steele's defense, it allows you to play free and allows you to play sideline to sideline, but this defense under Lance Guidry is going to be a little bit more high risk, high reward. Now, the risk is whenever you swing on defense, whenever you're blitzing or you're playing more man coverage or whatever it is, whenever you have that risk involved, it leaves you a little bit more exposed to some big plays. All right, you trust your personnel, leave them out on an island. If you don't do your job or we don't win our one-on-one matchup on the outside in the secondary, we have problems. We have a big play against us. Now, what you should be excited about is at Marshall last season, Lance Guidry, his defense was having a little bit more of that high reward flavor with what they did in 2022. Players had tackle for losses of 15, 10.5 tackles for loss, 9.5 tackles for loss, 8.5 tackles for loss. So a lot of guys getting in the backfield, getting home, wreaking havoc. On top of that, Marshall under Lance Guidry was one of the best teams in the country in terms of forcing turnovers. Right around 2.2 a game was Lance Guidry's defense. That's good for number 6 in the country. So it's high risk but high reward as well. They're going to mold this scheme to what they have in-house. Lance Guidry's not a guy that's stuck in his ways or been coaching for 40-plus years and just, this is the way I do things, so you got to rock with it. No, he's going to take inventory of the phenomenal skill they have. We'll talk about that more in a second. And he's going to play to his personnel. It's not going to be a stale scheme. It's not going to be a banging our head against a wall kind of scenario. We're playing to our advantage, which is our personnel, ideally in this scheme. Now, the same thing can be said about what you saw last year as it did this year in terms of that 4-2-5, in the sense that the advantages in playing the 4-2-5 defense are still the same. It's flexibility. It allows you to bring pressures from different places. It allows you to keep speed on the field with having those 5 defensive backs, 3 safeties, 2 corners. You feel what I'm saying here. That's still the advantage, to align with the spread offenses of the world, to align with what Clemson's going to do with Garrett Riley, to align with, whatever NC State's going to do next year, things like that. That's going to be the advantage for Miami, and that's why you should be excited about staying with this 4-2-5 defense. It's just continuing to trend with the way that modern college football offenses are trending, okay? So here's the key to making this whole thing work. Here's the two things I'm watching. It's going to sound simplistic, but stick with me here. Tackling in space. Anytime you have 5 DBs and 2 linebackers, you're betting on your athletes to go make plays and make plays in space, and you know you have to tackle. That wasn't something we consistently saw from Miami a season ago. And if you don't tackle, it doesn't matter what scheme we're in. We could have all the legends of the National Football League all in one room calling our defense, but if we can't tackle consistently, it doesn't matter. Now, some of that is coaching, some of that's preparation during the week. I believe overall, that's mentality. Like, you're playing Division I college football, you're playing in the ACC, you should know how to tackle. It's will you tackle? Do you have that edge about you to go and hit somebody in the mouth and wrap up and make a play week in and week out, rather play in and play out for 4 quarters? Again, these are cliches, but they're cliches for a reason. Y'all, cliches typically have some sort of root in truth. So tackling in space, improving on tackling in space will be one of the keys to making this whole defense work, to making this whole scheme work under Lance Guidry. Again, going back to that persona, that fire, that edge he coaches with, the way he's going to challenge you as a player. I think that's going to bode well for them tackling in space. There's a quote from a story I read recently where I think it was a defensive back that transferred in, it was a defensive tackle that transferred in, and Lance Guidry went up to him and said, my defensive backs are more physical than you. Now, obviously, that hurts a little bit, but he's challenging that player and saying, you need to be up here from a competition, from a performance standpoint. I need you up here from a physicality standpoint. You're not there yet, but you know what it does? When you're demanded to come up here, the great ones, they reach for it. And the great ones, are the ones that aren't great, rather, they get filtered out. So that's natural selection for you when it comes to the college football world. The second thing that I'm looking at, the second thing that is required to make this work, the personnel that Miami already has in-house needs to take the next step. I'm looking at guys like James Williams, highly recruited safety, big body, flashed a couple of times last year. We need him to take the next step in order for this defense to be successful. Nigel Kelly was a name that we heard a lot going into last season. Had 4 sacks in 2022. He's a young buck. We're going to need you to contribute even more in this defense, my guy. We're going to need you to take that next step for us to get to where we want to go. Cameron Kitchens. Some outlets had him as an All-American. Can he take that next step and continue to be that alpha dog on the defense? These are the players that are already in-house. There's a lot of ingredients. The cupboard isn't bare, but can you take that next step? And can Lance Guidry allow them, equip them, support them in taking that next step? Because this is a defense that is personnel driven. Like, it's not going to be we're going to try and trick you and confuse you and do a million different things to get you off of your game with a pre-snap standpoint. Like, there will be some window dressing, obviously. There's going to be a level of deceit baked into this defense, as there would be with any, but that's not who they are from an identity standpoint. The identity of this defense is we have some dogs. We're going to allow them to play. We're going to put them in position to succeed. Now, with that being said, your dogs got to go eat. Your dogs have to go make plays for you. So that'll be the difference with Miami. Wouldn't hurt if the offense could pick it up a little bit as well. We'll talk about more of that when the offensive coordinator does get hired at Miami. But as a whole, I'm really excited about Lance Guidry. I think this was a great get for Miami. I think, if nothing else, the culture addition of Lance Guidry is a step in the right direction. So they're going to settle it between the white lines here. We'll get a chance to see it in the spring. But I think Lance Guidry and his aggressive style of defense has a chance to be really successful in Coral Gables. Make sure you're subscribed. This has been The Hard Count. Nick, Break, Lift, and Heavy. We appreciate y'all rocking with us, man. Again, we're live on Tuesdays. We're live on Thursdays. Hit the bell so you make sure that you're not missing anything that we do here, okay? Thanks so much for watching. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep the party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.